Hey everybody, I'm Mike Martin. Back with us is John Fanning, our wine buyer, our fine wine buyer and owner of Solera Wine Bar in Rochester. And we've got a special guest today, Chris Benziger from California, from Sonoma, right?
From the Benziger Family Winery.
Awesome, welcome.
Hey,
Welcome.
Thank you. If you look up nepotism in the book dictionary, it's you'll see my family. We're nepotism run amok.
Okay.
Actually 4 generations now farming. We've been farming in California for 31 years now. My 4 other brothers, 2 sisters, 18 nieces and nephews.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was at the winery several years ago, and I sort of remember a story where any children of the family are actually sent away from the winery for some time.
Yeah, we call it Flaming Hoops, and it sounds like it should be one of these reality shows now. But the reality is, there's so
like the
many
Amish
of us.
family.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But to really learn the trade, you can't just live in an insulated place up there. Plus, it's so nice, nobody would want to leave. Yeah. So we kick everybody out of the nest. They started with me, of course. Kick you out of the nest, and you got to work outside the business for anywhere 5 to 7 years.
Outside the business, okay.
And then you come back, and hopefully you're a value-add part to the business.
Do most come back?
Well, I did.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
And my sister did. So we'll see. We're down the next generation. So it's a good way to kind of get them to go see the real world, and also hopefully bring back some good ideas and, like we said, value add. But it's been in the family for 31 years. We're actually ex-New Yorkers. We grew up in upstate New York, in Westchester County.
Oh, really? Okay.
My father had a small distributing company back there. But my older brother, it was his dream. He loved the wine business, particularly wine itself, but he never liked selling so much. He moved out to California in the early 70s. Moved out to the West Coast right when the California wine boom was just starting.
This is Mike?
Mike Benziger,
Okay.
yeah, my oldest brother.
Okay.
I'm the youngest, he's the oldest. About 15-year difference between us.
Right.
He went for work for a winery called the Stony Ridge Winery, which wasn't a very good winery. They used to call it the Reform School for Grapes because they would get fruit that Alma would refuse. You could put that on there. But it was pretty marginal stuff. But he had a dream. If he could get some good vineyard land, he could make some nice wines. And sure enough, he would spend his weekends up in the Amador Hills, Mendocino. Even back in the 70s, he knew he couldn't afford Napa. But he stumbled on this beautiful piece of property in Glen Ellen. Yeah. It's just next to Jack London State Park.
The old mansion.
Exactly, yeah, that burned down right in the Valley of the Moon, as Jack said, in the southern part of Sonoma County, but 10 minutes outside of Sonoma proper. If you cup your hands, it's exactly what the property looks like. It's a beautiful hanging bowl on the slopes of Sonoma Mountain. Sonoma Mountain's this huge volcano, an extinct one, I hope, and the property is carved out from it. And he came up there. There was a crazy doctor that was living there who grew more marijuana than he did grapes. I'm sure that's why my brother was there. Is this on film? Just kidding. But he called my dad and said, I found it. And I was a kid in high school at the time. I thought they were crazy. Yeah. Next thing you know, we're like Green Acres, moving from New York City out to Glen Ellen, California. The whole family, 13 in the first wave. I think they had to change the population size when we moved in. And we started farming. And it was one of the greatest things we've ever done, moving out there. It was tough. And it was no sure bet. 1980 in California was not a great time for the California wine business. I mean, if you remember then, Coca-Cola was getting out. Big businesses said, man, there's no money in it. And still there is no money in it. But it's a labor of love. It's a real passion
Did
for
you
us.
start with similar varietals of what you're growing now?
Yeah, exactly.
So
Matter of fact, the first wine we'll taste is the very first wine we made, a Sauvignon Blanc.
Really?
But instead of fermenting that in stainless steel, we fermented ours in a milk truck, believe it or not. We didn't have our stainless steel yet. Yeah. And so we rented an old milk truck. It said milk does a body good. Remember, it had one of those like flash dancers on the side of it. In the front baffle, we fermented Sauvignon Blanc, and the back baffle, Chardonnay. But it went on to be some pretty tasty stuff. Cool. But we learned early on then it was all about the vineyards, the importance of terroir.
I mean, I know the emphasis with the winery is about sustainability and organic farming and all that.
Yeah, how'd that happen for us? Well, so we moved out in 80 and we were like everybody else. We were very conventional farmers. I called it spray and pray. For every pest, there was a pesticide. For every mildew, mildicide. For every fungus, a fungicide. It was a pretty evasive form of farming. Lots of chemicals, lots of chemical fertilizers, and you pretty much just like everyone else, you had a tractor, you had chemicals, you went to town on it. And we grew up there, and slowly we saw this land change from a verdant garden, beautiful soils, started to change where the soils got hard, and the only thing that was green was the green canopy of the grapes. It was pretty much a green desert, if you will. Very common in agriculture today to people farm that way, because you're farming only for a monoculture of grapes. We realized a couple things. One, we as a family were getting sick all the time. Wow. Two, we had erosion issues because the soil was dying. We had phylloxera, not once but twice. We had nematodes, which were really terrible things. And then the wine quality.
It's a nematode.
Nematode's kind of like a worm in the soil.
Okay.
And you have to use methyl ethyl bad stuff to get rid of it,
Okay.
and it's not good. And then the wine quality was declining. And we realized we needed to make some changes. This was 1989. Excuse me, 1994. And my brother had been studying biodynamics and had always been fascinated by it. And he said, let's do it. So in 1994, we went cold turkey, and it was tough.
Absolutely.
It took us 6 years to change over to biodynamic farming. And with biodynamic farming and how it's different from conventional organic and biodynamics is, conventional farming is you have a corresponding chemical input for your problems or for your fertilization.
Okay.
With organics, you subsidize those chemical inputs for organic inputs, and it's much easier, much better on the land, but you're still bringing in inputs, soaps and oils instead of chemicals, organic compost. What we do in biodynamic farming is create a systems approach. So basically is instead of bringing stuff in, we grow a garden for our pest control. Literally, we grow these insectaries on the property. And what happens is it's propagated with 40 or 50 types of plants that attract predatory insects. They fly in, they make a home. It's kind of if you grow it, they will come. They make a home and they go out in the vineyards and eat the bad bugs. It's also a safe haven for bluebirds, hummingbirds, owls, bats, raptors, and they go out and do all the dirty work for us. So by growing these little colonies of gardens out there, we bring in what's called biodiversity, and those biodiversities take care of the problems. And then we spoke it out with what's called habitat highways. So you'll see these gardens, these little habitat highways, another garden, the borders of the property are farmed in this way, the creeks that run through the property, anywhere where we can stick a little garden, that's what we do. So that's how we deal with the pest problem. The second thing is, and it's gorgeous, and you see all of a sudden having this green desert, now there's a cacophony of noises, it's a symphony of nature.
For how complex it could sound, I've visited the property once or twice, and you guys have the tour, which is really pretty like
one of the best tours, and I tell you,
Absolutely.
people who listen out there, if you want to see wine country, you got to come out and see this tour, because we take you out there and you actually kick the dirt clods. You actually go out there and see the gardens. You hear the buzz. I mean, you really see it done. You see farming in its truest essence. And then the second thing is with biodynamics is biodiversity, and the other thing is what's called a closed system, meaning that we create our own composting. And so what we do that is we have animals on the property. And animals are very important, have always been through the history of time in farming. Our animals have always been part of a healthy farm. And ours are no difference. Between our cows, our sheep, and our chickens, they all have an integral role. The cows, pretty much for their manures. They'll give us anywhere up to 100 pounds of manure a day that we collect and use in our composting. The sheep are grazers, and they'll mow the lawn for us, out in the vineyards. Their little hooves, their cloven hooves aerate the soil, and they push the leaves and stuff over down, so there's no overwintering material, which decreases the mildew pressure, so that eliminates disease pressure in the spring, so you don't have to use any sprays for that. Plus they're dropping the golden turd out of their back end, fertilizing as they go. So in one step, there's 3 little processes going on, and they taste much better than a tractor. And then the chickens are running around in between the cows and the sheep, and what they're doing is they're eating all the worms and keeping the animals healthy, and also any bugs in the soils too. They're helping eliminate those.
Well, I'm sure that I know the quality of the grapes are probably really, really good, but did you lose yield when you did this?
You do well, yes, because what you're doing is we went from quantity farming to quality farming, and now we're not feeding the grapevine itself, where conventional farming, that's what you do, you feed the grapevine. You basically treat those little grapes like little water balloons. You want to get them fat and big so you can get more production. Ours, we don't feed the grapevine, we feed the soil. The vine has to find its own nutrition, so our roots naturally go deeper because they're always a little bit hungry and they're always a little bit thirsty. So the root systems, and there's a great picture that we should probably segue to is there's a root structure that shows a root system from a conventionally farmed plant and a root system from an organically grown plant, and you'll see how much deeper, broader roots the organically grown plant is, because it has to dig deeper for its nutrients. And that's important in vineyards because we want the vine to get through the topsoil and the subsoil into what's called the regolith. And the regolith is the fractured parent material that creates terroir. So like if we were in Champagne, we'd be talking about chalk as our regolith. If it was Burgundy, it would be that limestone, that Kimmeridgian limestone. In California, it's a series of volcanic stones, whether it's welded tufa, basalt, all these different soil types. So we want to get those roots down into the regolith, and that's how we get terroir. And that's what it's all about.
You must be one of the, if not the biggest producer practicing biodynamics.
I don't know the exact numbers. I know by acres we're not the biggest. I think Gurgit Hills is. Okay. But I think we are probably the most, I don't know, we make our own preparations. I think we're probably the most hands-on. I don't know what word you want to use, but we definitely are authentic in it. And we're certified both by Demeter in our vineyards and Stellar in our production facility. And remember, Demeter is the oldest organic certifying agency in the world. They've been doing it since the 1920s. So,
cool. If you had to make a guess, last question, if you had to make a guess, what percentage of the wineries out there
are biodynamic? I would say there's probably 25 to 35 wineries that are certified biodynamic, probably double that are in the process of being biodynamic. And it's continuing, because any winery that wants to sell their wines on a specific flavor of the soil wants to be biodynamic. Yeah. And let's look at some of the great names in Europe. I mean, Chapoutier, Zunhimbrick, Domaine Romanicanti, Leflevre, Leroy, Domaine Pingus, some of the top wines in the world do this because it's a terroir management system. It guarantees you get the flavor of that vineyard in that glass of wine.
Well, let's try the Sauvignon Blanc.
Yeah.
So this is
this is not made in a milk truck.
No, this is the 2010. We sell this for $11.99. Yeah. And this is you have a couple different series, right? This is the Sonoma
County series, right? Okay. So what this wine is, a couple words: light, clean, complex. And this is a very seasonal wine too. This is a springtime, summertime wine. These vineyards come from Sonoma Valley and the Santa Rosa Plain. These are on what's called the pleasant and gravelly loam soils. And what we want to do is we stick the grapes up underneath the canopy so that they don't get any direct sunlight. I want to keep these grapes nice and green. This wine is all about refreshing acidity. Yeah. So we bring the clusters in, full clusters, nice and green. They go right into the press and they go right into stainless steel. Great. About a 21 to 33 day fermentation in stainless steel. Once it's finished its primary fermentation, I rack it off the gross sleeves and I put it into 50-gallon stainless steel barrels. And what happens is the lees get spread out like that, so it has natural lees contact. And what that lees does, it adds a creamy weight to the mid palate there and gives this wine a little bit of complex middle palate before it falls into a long acidy finish. But being crisp and clean and racy, that like citrus raciness, it's a great food wine. Oysters, shellfish, cheese, it's wonderful.
Makes you hungry.
But it's kind of a double play wine. You can sit there on the patio and chill out, or you can walk it into the living room and dine.
It's great, very lively.
Yeah, very, very nice. Kind of grassy acidity going on. Very good. All right. All right, so the next is, this is going to be the 2008 Cabernet. I guess this is current vintage.
Yep.
For us. For you.
We just rolled in. The Merlot we have that's grown from the same vineyards as our 2007. This is a Bordeaux blend, roughly 80% Cabernet, and then about 10% Cabernet Franc and 10% Merlot. This comes from a really interesting spot. Again, we're talking terroir. This comes from what's called the Mayacamas Bench. Mayacamas are the mountains that separate Sonoma and Napa, a very big volcanic mountain chain that start from the bay and go all the way up the coast of California. And this is on the bench. And what the bench is, you have your hillside vineyards, which are very rocky, and then as it transitions to the valley floor, that's called the bench. And that's typically where the best vineyards in the world come from, what's called benchland soils. And this is no exception. These are fantastic soils. It's like a geological lasagna down here. If we were to dig a backhoe pit between welded tufa, basalt, it's amazing stuff. But what this really makes this unique is the weather. Right in front of these vineyards is Sonoma Mountain, where the winery is located. And Sonoma Mountain is the major geological feature of southern Sonoma County. It's this old volcano I was telling you about. And the weather comes off the ocean and it hits this mountain. And it has a hard time going over, though it does, but it goes left or right. It either goes into the Caneros and cools down the Caneros, or it goes up into Lake County on the other end. But right behind Sonoma Mountain, where these vineyards are, it's like an eddy. And you ever seen a stone in a river? It creates that eddy action. The weather spins on itself and creates a hot pocket. And that hot pocket, that high heat, is perfect for these Bordeaux varieties. So you put that high heat on that geological lasagna, and man, you got some great vineyard sites for Bordeaux varieties.
So in retrospect, 30 years later, was the original site as amazing as you guys hoped it would be?
Yeah, absolutely. We are very excited about it. And in here, these are all farmed. This is the main vineyard here is the Sunny Slope Vineyard, which is a biodynamic vineyard. Again, just deep roots into these rocky soils, and man, you get a really good Cabernet here.
Yeah.
And it's not one of those ones that's going to rip the enamel off your teeth,
yeah,
entire tongue into a bone.
It's not real tannic, yeah.
No, it's structured.
Yeah.
But it's good. It's got good acid. It's a wonderful
It's like
wine.
chocolate and tobacco and
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
That's what that exactly right. That kind of cocoa kind of flavors
Yeah.
in here. That's very, very unique of that Sonoma Valley, Sonoma Mountain area.
Let me sell this for me.
$16.99. Yeah, so $11.99 and $16.99. One other thing I wanted to mention was this
That's tasty.
Saturday, which will be the 21st, from 1 to 4, Rich Piccolo.
Rich Piccolo
is going to be doing the tasting in here, and you're going to sign a bunch of these bottles.
You bet. It's Earth Day, so
Earth Day is Sunday, right?
Earth Day is the 20th,
Friday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
we can go Sunday, Monday.
Yeah, that was this
It will kind of like it's like Earth Gras, right? We have
There
a few
you go.
days.
There you go.
Earthy Gras, yeah,
Excellent.
Got a ring to it.
yeah.
Very good. Well, Chris, thanks very much. This was really very educational. And we have a lot of customers that are interested in
Well,
organic and
I would.
biodynamic wines and-
Well, hopefully, I'll come back. We'll have a second segment. There's a lot to talk about, and it was a real pleasure, you guys.
Awesome.
Thanks for the
Chris,
support.
thanks for coming.
Thanks
Appreciate
for
it.
coming. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.